Ram Nam Karna se Sapura Hojata. By repeating the name of Rama, everything is attained. Namaste. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining again. The third time that we're listening to the Ramayana. Last time, Sita got abducted by the demon king Ravana. She was taken to Lanka and is threatened to be killed. And Rama is in despair, looking all over for his lovely wife Sita. Rama and Lakshman, they have heard that they can get help in their search from Sugriva, the monkey king. And they're on their way now to Rishamukha mountain, where Sugriva is residing. Book 4, Kishkinda Kanda, the book of Kishkinda. The monkey king, Sugriva, was seated on one of the peaks of Rishamukha with his 4 ministers. He had been beaten so badly by his brother Vali that he lived in constant dread of his spies. He had chosen a point on one of the peaks from where he could have a view of everything that went on within a distance of 10 miles. As soon as he saw the 2 handsome young men at the he was consumed with anxiety, for he feared that they had been sent by Bali to kill them. Hanuman was his chief minister, and he tried his best to pacify his master and take away his fears. But Sugriva could not rest. "Look, Hanuman," he said, "I can see the flash of swords at their waist. I am sure they must have been sent by my brother Bali to kill me. I request you to go and meet them and find out their intentions. Speak to them sweetly and try to find out their real intention in having come to this lonely spot." Hanuman was the son of the wind god Vayu. He could assume any form at will. He took on the form of a brahmachari, literally one who is celibate, and approached Rama and Lakshman. This was indeed a momentous meeting. Hanuman is known for his utter and selfless devotion to Rama. This was the first time that they were meeting, and ever afterwards Hanuman was Rama's servant. Hanuman approached them and said, "Tell me who you are. You appear to be hermits, but you are carrying weapons. I have been watching you for some time now, and you seem to be constantly searching for something. But first let me tell you who I am. I am Hanuman, the son of the wind god. I am one of the ministers of the monkey king called Sugriva. He was thrown out of his kingdom by his brother Bali and is now living in exile on this mountain. He desires to make friends with you and has sent me to find out your motives. I am actually a monkey, but I can assume any form I wish. Rama was thrilled when he heard the words of Hanuman. Lakshman said, "We have come here with the purpose of making friends with your master. We will be happy to do whatever you say." Hanuman was pleased with this answer and asked them the reason for having come to that lonely region and why they wanted to make friends with Sugriva. Lakshman told their reason for coming. Rama was banished to the forest for a period of 14 years. His wife Sita also came with him, but she has been abducted by the Rakshasa king Ravana. We have come to this place because we were told that your master, Sugriva, would be able to help us find her. Hanuman listened carefully to this story and said, "My master Sugriva has also had his fair share of problems. His wife was abducted by his brother, and he is now forced to live on this lonely mountain top. I will take you to him. I'm sure he will be able to help you. But these peaks are too steep for you to climb, so I will take you on my shoulders." With these words, Hanuman took the brothers with ease on his back and brought them before Sugriva. Sugriva was most relieved when he heard that they had not come from Bali, and did all that he could to make them welcome. Offering his hand to Rama, he said, "Come, let us form a bond of friendship between us, which nothing can break." Rama took his offered hand and embraced him happily. In the meantime, Hanuman had made a small fire and worshipped it with flowers. Rama and Sugriva went 3 times around the sacred fire and took an oath that they would remain friends forever. Rama swore to kill Bali and help Sugriva regain his kingdom. And Sugriva swore to help Rama regain his wife. Sugriva said, "One day, not long ago, 5 of us were sitting on top of this peak when we saw a Rakshasa sailing across the sky with a beautiful woman in his arms. She was crying out, 'Oh Rama, oh Lakshman.' I think it must have been your wife. When she saw us, she tied up something in a cloth, torn from her upper garment, and dropped it to us. We have kept the bundle safe. Here it is." Rama turned pale when he saw the scrap of yellow cloth, which he recognized to be Sita's. He opened it with trembling hands and almost fainted when he saw a few bits of her jewelry. Rama started to question Sugriva eagerly about everything he had seen on that day and what he knew about Ravana. Sugriva admitted sadly that he knew nothing about Ravana. All he had seen was a beautiful woman in great distress. He assured Rama that they would soon rescue her. Be full of hope and courage. Please don't give way to your grief like this. Sugriva had a very affectionate nature and could not bear to see Rama's distress. A friend considers the grief of his friend as his own, and I cannot bear to see your sorrow. Please rest assured that I will help you to recover your wife. Then he told Rama the full details of his own banishment. Bali is my eldest brother. He chased me out of the kingdom and kept my wife Rumi for himself. O Rama, I can never forget the pain and humiliation which my brother has caused me. So saying, Sugriva burst into tears. Rama comforted him and promised to kill Bali and get his kingdom back. Though he believed Rama, Sugriva had some doubts whether Rama could actually defeat Bali, for he knew his brother was very powerful. Lakshman realized that Sugriva doubted that Rama could defeat Bali. He said to Sugriva, I see that you have doubts. Tell me what Rama can do to banish your doubts and restore your faith in him. Sugriva hung his head in shame. Please don't misunderstand me, he said. My fear of Bali is so great that I find it difficult to accept that someone so slim and handsome as Rama can beat him. See those trees over there? Bali could pierce each tree with one arrow. Can Rama do that? Turning to Rama, he said, Please don't think I'm trying to test you, or that I'm trying to insult you by asking you to display your ability. But I don't want you to meet Bali until I am sure that you can beat him. Rama smiled reassuringly at him and said, Your doubts are quite understandable. I'll try to convince you. Fixing an arrow on his bow, he shot it. The arrow spat like a golden streak, and piercing 7 trees, it fell to the earth, along with the trees which were all split into 2 by Rama's arrow. All the monkeys were thrilled when they saw this and jumped up and down. Sugriva's doubts had been relieved, and he rushed to embrace Rama. Let us go immediately to Kishkinda and kill Bali, he said. Rama agreed and asked Sugriva to go first and challenge Bali for a fight. He promised to hide himself and kill Bali when the opportunity arose. Rama, Lakshman and Hanuman stood behind the bushes while Sugriva bellowed his war cry and strode forth like a lion in front of the city gates. Bali couldn't believe his ears. He gave a roar of anger and decided to finish off his brother once and for all. Sugriva had been a thorn in his side for many years, and it was now time he made an end of him. That way, he could keep his sister-in-law without any feeling of guilt. He knew the laws, and he knew that he had done a despicable thing in consorting with the wife of his younger brother. He had somehow justified it, but if Sugriva were dead, he would have a legitimate excuse for keeping her. Thinking along these lines, he was about to rush out of the gate when his own wife, Tara, stopped him. She said, "Please don't go to fight with your brother. How can he dare to come here unless he is being helped by someone? Our son, Angada, told me his spies had found out that Rama and Lakshman, the sons of King Dasarath, are here in the area, and they have made friends with Sugriva and agreed to help him. I have heard that Rama is a most noble person and a great warrior. If he is helping your brother, you have no chance of victory. Remember that you have done Sugriva a great injustice by throwing him out of the kingdom for no fault of his own, and taking his wife. Please go and make friends with him and agree to take him back. After all, you are the elder brother, and it is for you to set an example. By doing this, you will make friends with Rama. Please take my advice and do not make an enemy of Rama, for I feel very frightened for you." However, her plea fell on deaf ears. Bali rushed out with a roar, and the brothers locked themselves in a fierce combat. Sugriva fought with all his might, and for some time the only sounds to be heard were grunts and groans. Rama was watching the fight closely. Perhaps he hoped that Sugriva would manage to defeat Vali by himself. But soon he saw that his friend was weakening and looking around desperately for help. Rama knew that the time had come for him to do what he did not want to do, but which was unavoidable if he wanted to keep his promise to his friend. He fixed the arrow to the bow and let it go. It flashed forward. The mighty Bali lay on the ground, drenched in blood. Rama and Lakshman came out of the bushes and walked towards the fallen hero. Bali watched them come, and when they were close enough, he said, "I was fighting with my brother when suddenly an arrow hit me from somewhere. I had no quarrel with you, Rama, yet you deemed it right to kill me while hiding behind the trees. Why did you do this? You are said to possess all great qualities. You are famed for having observed the rules of Dharma all your life. Why have you forgotten your own rules? This act of yours will always be questioned. It is against all the rules of Dharma." So saying, Bali fell back, exhausted, to the ground. The Monkey King was fast losing his strength. Rama had waited patiently for Bali to have his say. After Bali had exhausted himself, Rama spoke with compassion in his eyes. "O Bali, you speak of Dharma and Adharma as if you know all about them, but you fail to see your own misdemeanors. Your younger brother, who is full of good qualities, should have been treated as a son by you. Instead of that, you banished him from his kingdom and took his wife, Ruma. According to the law of this land, anyone who looks on his daughter, his sister, or the wife of his brother with lust should be punished, and the punishment is death. You have been sleeping with your brother's wife when he is still alive, and this violates the eternal Dharma. Sugriva is as dear to me as Lakshman. I have sworn to be his friend and publicly gave him my word to restore his kingdom and his wife to him. How could I go back on that promise? I have only kept my word to him, nothing else. So why do you accuse me of adharma? You would have done the same if you had been in my position." Bali considered Rama's words and realized that he spoke the truth. He bitterly regretted his cruelty to his younger brother, whom he should have been treating as a son, as Rama said. With flowing eyes and choked voice, Bali said, "O Rama, you are right. I deserve to be punished. I should die for my crimes, but I am worried about the future of my only son, Angada. Please consider him as your own son and look after him. I realize now that I was fated to meet death at your hands. Rama promised him that he would take very good care of Angada. He stroked Bali's dying body with loving hands, and Bali felt a great peace creeping into his soul at Rama's tender touch. He begged Rama to forgive him. Then he lost consciousness. Tara heard that her husband was killed, and she rushed out of the fortress with her son. She threw herself on his body and cried as if her heart would break. Hanuman went to her and tried to console her. A man reaps the fruits of his actions, be they good or bad. The human body is like a bubble on the surface of the water. No one need mourn for another, since we are all to be pitied. Where is the cause for grief in a world where everything is transient? You are a wise lady, and you know only too well that life and death are inevitable, and this life is most impermanent. This is why we should always try to perform as many good acts as we can while alive. Your thoughts should now be only for your son. Bali painfully opened his weary eyes and saw his brother and said, Sugriva, forgive me for what I have done to you. Accept this kingdom from me, as well as my son and my wealth. Listen to my last wishes. Here is my son, Angada. Treat him as your own. Don't forget your promise to Rama. Help him to find his wife. Then Bali called his son to his side, saying, My child, remember your changed circumstances and obey Sugriva in everything. Accept happiness and sorrow as they come, and do not be too moved by either. By now his end was fast approaching. Within a few minutes he was dead. Sugriva too was filled with remorse. Approaching Rama, he said, Rama, you kept your word and Bali is dead, but now I have lost interest in becoming king. I should never have wished for my brother's death. I am a sinner. I will not break my promise to you. Hanuman will help you, but all I want is to just die. All the monkeys surrounded Rama and begged him to take charge of their affairs, since Sugriva was in a state of shock. Hanuman invited him to enter the city. Rama said, "According to the vow I made my father, I cannot enter a village or city until my 14 years of exile are over. Let Sugriva be taken to the city and crowned." Turning to Sugriva, he said, "Go and take up the reins of government." Then, turning to Lakshman and the others, he continued, "This is the month of Shravana, the first month of the rainy season. Lakshman and I will spend the 4 months of the monsoons in some cave in the forest. When the rains stop, you can think about fulfilling your promise to me." Sugriva went into the city and was crowned. He was reunited with his wife. Rama and Lakshman found a comfortable and spacious cave, which they decided to make their home for the duration of the rainy season. Soon the monsoon set in. The rain fell in sheets, with thunder and lightning thrown in for special effects. Rama and Lakshman could scarcely step out of the cave. There was nothing to distract Rama's mind. All he could do was to sit and brood over Sita's fate. Once, when he saw the watery moon rising over the mountain, he could not contain his grief any longer and broke down and sobbed like a child. Lakshman comforted him as best as he could. "Brother," he said, "you have often told me that one who loses his mental equilibrium will never be able to accomplish anything. All we need is a little bit of time. As soon as the monsoons are over, we will set out and find her. We will kill the Rakshasa and rescue her. So please don't grieve." Rama was touched by his tenderness. "My dear, I realize that sorrow is debilitating, and I'll try and shake it off. It is hard to be patient when I think of how unhappy my darling is, but I will do my best." Somehow they managed to contain their impatience, and at last the 4 months dragged to a close, and the skies became blue once again. Hanuman went to Sugriva to remind him of his promise to Rama. After years of exile, Sugriva found his new life of luxury intoxicating. Hanuman approached Sugriva and reminded him gently of his duty. "My lord, your wife and your kingdom have been restored to you by the kindness of Rama. Have you forgotten that you owe him a debt? The time has come for you to repay it. Please set aside your other interests and devote yourself to the matter at hand. Rama is too noble to remind you of your duty, so it is up to you to make all arrangements and inform him of them. Do not provoke Rama's anger. If you do, nothing can save you. Sugriva sent for Nila, one of his generals, and told him to get the whole army to assemble in Kishkinda. Within 10 days, the whole hillside was covered with monkeys. They came in the millions, lion-tailed, dark-faced, red-bottomed, white-furred, and golden-haired, from all parts of the country, and crowded around their king to await his commands. The bears also came with their king Jambavan, who was an old and shaggy black bear, noted for his wisdom and respected by all the monkeys. Sugriva summoned his general Binata and asked him to go east and return within a month. Another troop was dispatched to the west and another to the north. Turning to Hanuman, he said, "You are exceptional. Please take a troop and go south. You are sure to find a way to reach Sita." Rama was delighted that Hanuman was being sent south. Taking out his ring, he handed it over to Hanuman as a token, to reassure Sita that he was indeed Rama's messenger. His last words to him were, "Hanuman, remember, I am depending entirely on you. Make every attempt to locate Sita. I know that you will succeed." The monkeys who had been sent to the north, east, and west returned within the month and sadly admitted that they had found no traces of Sita. Sugriva told Rama that Sita must be somewhere in the south, as he had seen her being carried in that direction. He assured Rama that if anyone could achieve the impossible, it was Hanuman, who was the son of the wind god. Hanuman's party, which had gone south, made a thorough search of all the forests and caves. The time given to them was coming to an end, and they were fast losing hope. Now they were standing on the seashore, watching the magnificence of the ocean. They dared not to go back empty-handed. Angada decided that he would give up his life on the seashore. Those who wanted to join him could do so, and the rest could go back. So saying, Angada lay down on the hot sands and prepared for death. The rest followed suit. In one of the caves nearby, there lived an old eagle called Sampati, who was the brother of Jatayu. He hadn't eaten for quite a while, since he had lost the strength to look for food. Hearing the noise made by the monkeys, he came out of his cave and found them all lying on the shore, waiting for death. Today, fortune has indeed favored me. I haven't eaten for days, and here are some delicious monkeys, waiting for me to go and eat them. The monkeys heard him say this to himself and became frightened. They didn't wish to be eaten alive by an eagle, even though they were prepared to fast to death. Angada said to Hanuman, "Just look at what has happened to us. This bird looks as if he is Yama himself, coming to make an end of us. It is said that all birds and animals love Rama. Even the old eagle Jatayu was prepared to give up his life for his sake." When Sampati heard the name of his brother, he called out, "Who are you? What do you know of my brother Jatayu? How did he die? Tell me everything." The monkeys gave him all their news. Sampati's eyes filled with tears when he heard of the fate of his younger brother, and he wept bitterly. Then Angada told him the story of Rama and why they had come there, and asked him if he knew anything about Ravana. Sampati said, "I saw Sita being carried away by that wicked Rakshasa. He held her in a fierce grip while she did her best to wriggle out of his grasp. She was crying out for Rama and Lakshman. I will tell you where Ravana lives." A flash of hope dawned in the hearts of all the monkeys when they heard this, and they crowded around the old bird and begged him to tell them all he knew. He continued, "Ravana, his capital, is the city of Lanka. It is on an island, and Sita is a prisoner in his palace. With my eagle's vision, I can see all the way to Lanka. If any of you is capable of crossing the sea, you will be able to see her as I can see her." The monkeys now clustered on the shore and thought of plans to cross the ocean. They felt quite helpless, but Angada encouraged them to think of some plan and asked them if any one of them could jump that far. There was great excitement in the group when he said this. One said that he could jump 10 miles, another 20, another 30, and so on. Angada himself said he could jump all the way to Lanka, but feared that he might not be able to make it back. Now Jambavan, the old bear who was part of their group, went up to Hanuman, who was sitting a little apart, lost in thought. "Oh, Hanuman," he said, "why are you sitting like this? Don't you know that you are the son of the wind god and equal in strength to Rama? Brahma conferred a boon to you, that you would be invincible in battle. Indra gave you another boon, that death would come to you only when you wished for it. Lord Shiva taught you many things, including the knowledge of how to change your form at will. Shiva's bull, Nandi, taught you all the arts, so that you became an accomplished scholar. But he also endowed you with great humility, so that you can never remember your own strength, unless someone reminds you of it. We are all on the brink of despair, and only you can save us. Know your own strength and leap to this city of Ravana and save us." When he heard these words of Jambavan, Hanuman suddenly realized his own strength. He started growing and growing until his head seemed to hit the sky. The other monkeys watched, fascinated. Hanuman spoke to them, "I am the son of Vayu, and there is nothing that I am not capable of doing. I will cross the sea in a matter of moments, see Rama's queen, and bring her back if possible." Climbing to the top of the mountain, he concentrated his mind on Rama and took a flying leap into the air. And, before the astonished gaze of the monkeys, he sailed across the sky. This is where book 4 ends, Kishkinda Kanda. Book 5 is called the Book of Beauty, Sundara Kanda. Hanuman stood on the mountain, repeating the glorious mantra Rama, 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 and concentrated on Rama. Then he shook himself and roared like thunder. Placing his hands on the rock, he sucked in his belly and folded his legs. He held his breath and, concentrating his mind on Rama and repeating the Rama mantra, he took a flying leap. He was absolutely confident of his ability to jump over the ocean and find Sita. Because of the force with which he jumped, Trees were uprooted. Hanuman coursed through the air like a thundercloud. Varuna, the god of the waters, wanted to help him and asked the mountain called Mainaka to rise up from the water and give him a resting place. Hanuman was pleased, but refused her offer, since he was in a desperate hurry. Soon he saw signs of land and realized that he was close to his destination. He changed himself into a small, insignificant-looking monkey and stood on the peak overlooking Lanka. He saw a magnificent city built on a hill. It was so well guarded that it would be almost impossible to enter. The mansions were glittering in the evening light, and the hill was covered with trees and flowering bushes. He could see the clean white roads, bordered by green, luscious-looking grass. Situated as it was on top of the hill, Lanka looked as if it were floating on air, for there were clouds surrounding it. Hanuman jumped from rock to rock as he made his way to the northern gate, which was guarded by fierce-looking Rakshasas. He felt that it would be an impossible task for an army to enter Lanka. First of all, how would Rama, accompanied by a horde of monkeys, cross the sea which he had just sailed over? Even if they succeeded in crossing, the lookout posts would be able to see anyone as soon as they landed on the shore. Even my father, the god of wind, would not be able to enter this city undetected, he thought to himself. He decided that he himself would go and discover the whereabouts of Sita, for that was his immediate task. He waited till darkness had set in and then shrunk his body even further, to the size of a small cat, and went near the gate. He waited till a pale moon floated across the sky, accompanied by the stars. He was so small that he could easily have slipped through the bars of the gate. But as he tried to do so, he was stopped by the Rakshasi, who was the guardian of the gate. "Who are you?" she demanded. "You look like a monkey. Why have you come here? Tell the truth." "No one can enter Lanka without my permission." Hanuman spoke humbly. "Tell me, O lady, who you are. Why are you standing in this frightening pose?" She said, "My name is Lankini. I have been ordered to kill anyone who enters without reason, and I'm going to kill you, unless you tell me the purpose of your visit." Unruffled, Hanuman said, "Madam, I have heard about the beauty of Lanka, and I have come here to see it for myself. I just want to see its glories, and then I'll go away. I have not come here to stay." She was not impressed by his sweet words, and said, "You are a stupid little monkey. You will have to fight with me if you wish to enter." So saying, she gave him a slap on his face. Without saying a word, Hanuman boxed her back with his left hand. Even though he didn't use all his strength, she fell down with a thud. She was astonished to be knocked down by a small cat-like monkey. She said, "I have been warned by Brahma. He warned me that I would be beaten up by a monkey. When such a thing happened, he told me that it was a foreboding of disaster. I see now that the time has come for Ravana to die. I suppose that you have come in search of Sita. You are at liberty to enter the city and do what you wish." Then Lankini vanished from the city forever. Hanuman entered the fabulous city of Lanka and stared spellbound. Wherever he looked, he saw nothing but beauty. There was music everywhere, the tinkle of anklets on women's feet, the rustle of silks and satins, perfume of jasmine and sandalwood, and palaces gleaming in the moon. The army was parading the streets, but he was so small that no one noticed him. At one point, he saw the wondrous aerial chariot of Ravana. It was called Pushpaka, or the flower chariot. Pushpa means flower, and the chariot was covered with flowers. He jumped onto the platform surrounding it and gazed fascinated. At last he reached a palace which was even more magnificent than the rest. This must be Ravana's, he thought. He slipped in through the doorway, which was exquisitely carved and inlaid with gems and pearls. The seats, couches, and beds were all of gold, set with gems. All the wealth of Kubera seemed to be here. All the most beautiful women from all over had been captured and brought to Lanka by Ravana. Seeing all these sleeping beauties, Hanuman began to feel sorry for Ravana. Instead of being contented with all these women, he was deliberately courting death by capturing Sita. Most of the women were obviously under the influence of wine. Hanuman looked all over. He knew for sure that none of these abandoned women could be Sita, however beautiful they might be. He had created a picture of Sita as Rama had described her, and he was sure that the description did not fit any of these women. Suddenly, Hanuman saw a bed made of crystal, ivory, sandalwood, and gold. It was unbelievably beautiful, and he stood for a while admiring it. The white umbrella of royalty was above it. Creeping up closer, he found Ravana sleeping on it. He was a magnificent figure of a man with huge, powerful arms and broad chest covered with white silk. Close by was a woman sleeping on a separate bed, wearing necklaces of pearls and gems. Her beauty was such that she didn't need ornaments. Her skin was golden, and she had an elegance which made him think that he had found Sita. Then he realized that Sita would never be able to sleep like this, without Rama beside her. She would not be found in Ravana's harem. Of this he was sure. He wandered about from room to room of the palace without finding Sita. He felt embarrassed at the thought that he was being forced to look at all these females in seductive poses. But then he realized that though he was moving among such extraordinary beauties, his mind was unaffected and untouched by them. Hanuman was a brahmachari. He searched every inch of space in the palace, and then searched the gardens. He was feeling more and more distressed as the night wore on. Sita was nowhere to be found. He began to think that perhaps she had killed herself or been eaten by the Rakshasas. He knew that he couldn't return without some information about her. Suddenly he spied another grove filled with Ashoka trees, which he had overlooked. It was the only place he hadn't searched so far. He jumped to the top of the wall surrounding the grove and looked down. Rare trees and flowers were growing in abundance. The night was passing, and he still had not discovered Sita. The birds were beginning to wake and fly up into clouds, disturbed by Hanuman's jumps. He decided to hide himself in a big tree which overlooked a splendid platform, in the hope that Sita might come there. Rama had told Hanuman that Sita was extremely fond of flowers and trees, and Hanuman hoped that she might come to that enchanting grove for a walk. The garden seemed to be made for her, with its flowers and waterfalls. Looking around in the light of the setting moon, he saw a small temple with white pillars. As he peered closer, he suddenly saw her, and he knew unmistakably that this was Sita, the beloved of Rama. It was obvious that she had been fasting for a long while. Her beauty was like a flame hidden by smoke. She was draped in a crumpled piece of yellow silk. She had no ornaments. Tears were flowing from her lovely eyes. Sorrow seemed to be her constant companion. Her long black hair was tied in a simple braid which fell to her thighs. She was surrounded by ugly-looking Rakshasis, horrendous monsters, some with one eye or one ear, and some without ears, and some with noses on their foreheads, some hairy and some bald, some hunchbacked, and some with faces resembling goats, foxes, camels, or horses. In the midst of these monsters, she looked like a frightened deer, surrounded by fierce hounds. She had never known sorrow before, and now it was all she knew. Her eyes mirrored the depths of her despair. Hanuman thought to himself, "This indeed is Sita. She is as beautiful as Rama described her. Exquisite eyebrows, graceful. She sat on the bare ground, like a female ascetic, the picture of shattered hope. Though parted cruelly from her husband, her mind was full of him alone. Her lips were constantly murmuring, Rama, 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 Rama. Hanuman was overcome with sorrow at the sight of the princess, separated so viciously from the one she loved. Fate is indeed all-powerful, he thought to himself. Or else, why should this innocent lady have to suffer like this? The night was almost gone. With the break of day, he could hear the chanting of the Vedas being recited to wake up the demon king. Drums were booming and lutes playing to welcome the dawn. Ravana woke up, and his first thought was for Sita. He had never met with such resistance from any woman in all his life, and he certainly had a lot of experience with females of every type. Her resistance had only served to whet his appetite. It was a challenge to him. He was sure that no woman could resist him for long, and that it could only be a matter of time before she succumbed like so many others. He strode toward the grove of Ashoka trees. Hanuman watched him carefully from the top of the tree. He had only seen Ravana asleep. Now he looked even more magnificent. Hearing the tread of his feet as he approached, Sita trembled in terror and grief. She tried to put up a brave front. She sat on the bare ground. Crossing her arms, she tried to cover her body with her two hands and avoiding his piercing, lusty looks. Looking at her efforts to cover herself, he said, "Why do you try to hide your beauty from my eyes? Wherever my eyes fall, I see nothing but your beauty. Honor my love and accept me as your husband. Do you think I cannot force you to be mine? It is only my intense love for you that stops me from doing this. I want you to come to me of your own accord. Why are you torturing yourself like this? Your lovely hair is matted with neglect, your silk garment soiled and dirty, and you are starving. Come, rise, dress yourself in lovely clothing, wear jewels and perfume. This ground is not a fitting couch for your flaming beauty. My Sita, why don't you listen to me? Youth and beauty are short-lived. Do not waste both in unnecessary sorrow. Come, shed your grief and accept my love. I will make you the happiest woman in the world, my chief queen. I cannot bear to take my eyes off your form. Night and day I am haunted by your face. Can't you see that I'm crazy with love for you? After having met you, I cannot bear to look at my other wives. Your dress is in rags, and you have no ornaments, yet you continue to fascinate me. You have seen me and my glory. What has Rama got to compare with this? Take it from me that you will never see him again. From the moment he entered the garden, Sita had cast her eyes down and sat with averted face throughout his passionate declaration of love. Though she was terrified, she said, I am the wife of Rama, and it is against all the laws of Dharma for you to lust after me. Give up these sinful thoughts and go back to your own wives. Be satisfied with them. I am not the one for you. Why are you bent on destroying your race? An entire kingdom can perish if its ruler becomes the slave of his passions. Lanka is doomed. Do you think you can tempt me with gold and riches? Rama is to me what sunlight is to the sun. Restore me to him and earn my gratitude, but never hope to earn my love. Ravana answered, You are different from any other woman I have ever known. Most women respond to compliments and gifts, but the more I offer you, the more you reject me. It is lucky for you that my love controls my anger, or else you would have been killed long ago. Don't think you can escape so easily. You have only 2 more months left of the 12 I promised you. After that, either you share my bed or become my breakfast. Bed or breakfast. The choice is yours. Ravana told the Rakshasis who were guarding her to make sure that she changed her mind fast. He strode off, making the ground tremble. As soon as he left, the guards started shouting and abusing Sita. What a stupid woman you are, to refuse to be the wife of this king of kings. Why don't you agree to his wishes and become his wife? Another said, You are very lovely. I have an irresistible desire to feast on your luscious breasts and berry-like lips and delicious liver and spleen. Come, bring wine, and we will chop her into little bits and eat her. Sita burst into heart-rending sobs. She cried as if her heart would break. Leaning on the trunk of the tree on which Hanuman sat, she cried out, "Oh Rama, where are you? Why don't you come? I realize now that death will not approach a person until the appointed time has come. Or else, how can I continue to live in the midst of these cruel Rakshasis, in the palace of this man, parted from my beloved?" Sita shed so many tears that she had none left. Heartbroken and lonely, she felt she had reached the end of her endurance and determined to end her life. Hanuman was wondering how he could approach her without frightening her. Surrounded as she was with these hostile creatures, she was sure to mistrust everyone. If I jump down in front of her, she will surely scream. Then he hit upon a bright idea. Without revealing himself, he spoke from his hiding place in the tree on which he was leaning. Suddenly, Sita heard these sweet words coming from above. There was once a king called Dasarath. He had 4 sons, of whom Rama was the eldest. He went to the Dandaka forest with his wife and brother. One day, when the brothers were away, Ravana stole his wife Sita. Rama was heartbroken and wandered all over the country, looking for her. At last, he made friends with the Monkey King, who promised to help him find her. The monkeys were sent in all directions to search for her. I am one of them, and I have come here because I have found the person who has been described to me by Rama as being graceful, charming, and beautiful. So saying, he fell silent. Sita was filled with wonder and hope when she heard this. Brushing her hair aside, she looked up at the tree and tried to find out who was responsible for bringing this ray of hope into her heart. Her eyes roved in all directions, but she couldn't find him. The Rakshasis had given up their efforts to persuade her. Some were now snoring under the trees. Hanuman jumped lightly down to a branch from which he could be seen, and at last her anxious eyes spied him, the messenger of Rama, the bringer of hope and happiness. She saw a small monkey clinging to the branch of the tree. He was small and cute, with white fur and red face, and his eyes were the color of liquid gold. He was seated humbly on the branch and looked harmless. Still, she had her doubts. She had been cheated so many times in the past few months that she was always suspicious of everything and everyone. Hanuman guessed what was going on in her mind. He jumped down lightly and bowed before her, and began talking in a soft tone. "O fair lady, tell me who you are. Like dewdrops on a lotus petal, tears seem to be clinging to your eyes. Why are you alone here, and what is the cause of your sorrow? If by some great good fortune you are Sita, wife of Rama, who was forced here by Ravana, then please listen to me carefully. I feel that you are indeed Rama's queen. Tell me, truthfully, are you not Sita?" Sita cried out, "Yes, indeed, I am the daughter-in-law of the great Dasarath and wife of the noble Rama. I accompanied my husband to the forest and was kidnapped by Ravana and brought here. He has given me 2 more months to succumb to his passion. if Rama doesn't come before that, I will end my life. Hanuman then spoke, My lady, I have been sent here by Rama. He is well, though he is also desperately unhappy at being parted from you. He grieves for you night and day, and has sent me as his messenger to tell you that he will come for you very soon and kill Ravana and rescue you. Sita was thrilled when she heard these words. She had been living in the darkness of despair for so many months that she had almost given up hope of rescue. These words put new heart into her, and she said, It is said that if a person lives in hope, happiness will come her way, sooner or later. I see now that this is true. Somehow, Sita says, I feel drawn to you. She still has some doubts. Please tell me more about Rama. Softly and sweetly, Hanuman began to speak of the one who was closest to her heart. My lady, please believe me. I have indeed been sent by your husband. My name is Hanuman. I have been searching for you all these days. I crossed the ocean to see you, and now my mission is over. All I have to do is go and give my message of hope to Rama, who is waiting anxiously for my return. Very soon you will see Rama and Lakshman entering the city of Lanka with a large army, and you will be rescued. At last, Sita was convinced that he was indeed a messenger from Rama. Her joy knew no bound. Tears of happiness replaced the tears of sorrow. Hanuman said respectfully, My lady, please give me leave to go now. Rest assured that Rama will arrive shortly and rescue you. Here is his ring, which he has sent with me to reassure you of my identity. He went near her and handed over the ring which she knew and loved so well. Taking the precious article in her hands, she gazed and gazed at it. Tears flowed down her cheeks. Oh, Hanuman, she said, I wonder if he will be able to reach me in time. I have barely 2 more months to live. Hanuman could not bear to think of going away and leaving Sita alone for another 2 months. He said, My lady, no doubt Rama will come soon, but I cannot bear to think of you being left alone here. Come with me now, and I will carry you across the ocean and take you to Rama this minute. Just give me the command. Sita was both touched and amused by these words. "Dear little monkey," she said, "how can a tiny creature like you carry me across the sea?" Hanuman smiled and said, "My lady, do not doubt my capacity. I can grow to any size." So saying, he began to expand his body until it looked like a huge mountain. "If necessary, I can carry off the whole of Lanka. Don't be frightened. Come with me, and I'll take you to Rama and make him happy." Sita's eyes were round with wonder, and she said, "I see that I have underestimated you. I'm sure that you can easily take me across the sea, but we have to consider this proposition carefully. If you rescue me, it would bring no credit to Rama. It is only proper and fitting that Rama himself should come and rescue me. Hanuman, please go back and bring my husband and Lakshman as fast as you can. Then, and only then, will my sorrow come to an end." Sita unwrapped the end of her garment and carefully took out her precious hair ornament and gave it to Hanuman, saying, "Please give this to Rama. When he sees this, he will be convinced that you have indeed met me. Oh Hanuman, my life depends on you. Are you sure Rama and the others will be able to cross the ocean and come here?" Hanuman assured her that everything was possible and told her not to worry. He comforted her as best as he could, but she could not control the tears which were pouring down her cheeks at the thought that the one friendly face she had seen in 10 long months was now about to depart. Sadly, she allowed him to leave. This is where I will end today. So Hanuman has just discovered Sita and given her the message of hope. Next time it will continue next Saturday, so it's a cliffhanger. Ram Ram.